It was a sunny Saturday afternoon, and the streets were quiet. John had just finished washing his Lamborghini, his dream car. The black sports car sparkled under the sunlight, every curve shining perfectly. John ran his hand over the hood and smiled. He had worked hard for this car, saving money for years, and finally, it was his. Nothing could ruin this perfect day, or so he thought. As he admired the Lamborghini, he noticed a commotion down the street. A group of teenagers was laughing loudly near a corner, and one of them looked familiar. It was the son of his neighbor, Karen. John had heard stories about Karen's son, how he loved showing off, always bragging, and sometimes being careless. He never thought it would be a problem, until now. The boy ran straight towards the Lamborghini, shouting and laughing. John shouted, "Hey! Be careful!" But the boy didn't slow down. He tripped slightly on the curb, and in a terrible moment, he crashed directly into the side of the Lamborghini. The sound of metal scraping and glass breaking filled the street. John froze, his heart pounding in his chest. When he reached the car, he couldn't believe his eyes. The side door was completely scratched, the mirror was hanging by wires, and one of the wheels looked bent. His Lamborghini, his dream car, was ruined in a matter of seconds. John's hands shook as he touched the damaged door. He felt a mix of anger, fear, and disbelief. Karen rushed out of her house, her face pale but her voice sharp. "What happened? What did you do?" she yelled at her son, but her eyes were also on John, as if he was the one causing trouble. The boy looked guilty but also scared. John tried to stay calm, but his anger was rising. "Your son destroyed my car. Look at this damage," he shouted, pointing at the wrecked Lamborghini. Karen raised her hands. "It was an accident. It's just a car," she said in a tone that made John's blood boil. "You can't overreact like this." Her words made no sense to him. Just a car? This was not just a car, this was his dream, his hard work, destroyed. Neighbors started coming out of their houses, curious about the loud argument. Some were whispering, others were shaking their heads. John felt embarrassed but also furious. He took out his phone and started recording. He wanted proof of the damage and how Karen and her son were reacting. The boy was still looking down, clearly scared, but Karen was standing in front of him, almost protecting him. "Are you going to fix it, or are you just going to stand there?" John demanded. Karen's face hardened. "I don't see why I should pay for something that was an accident. Kids make mistakes," she said. Her calmness, almost like she was not scared at all, made John angrier. He knew right then that this was going to be more than just fixing a car. The boy mumbled something like "I'm sorry," but it didn't help. John could see the fear in his eyes, but he could also see that he had caused real damage. It wasn't just a scratch, the Lamborghini needed professional repair, and that could cost thousands of dollars. John took a deep breath, trying to calm down. He thought about calling the police, but something told him it would not be that simple. Karen was known in the neighborhood for having influence, and he had heard she liked to twist situations in her favor. But he couldn't just let it go. He couldn't ignore this. He had to do something before it was too late. He walked around the car slowly, taking pictures from every angle. Every photo captured the scratches, the broken mirror, the bent wheel. He wanted proof. If he had to fight this legally, he would need every detail documented. Karen and her son were watching him closely, and he could feel the tension building. Then, something unexpected happened. Karen's tone changed slightly, almost like she was thinking of a plan. "Maybe we can talk about this later," she said softly. "Let's not make a big scene right now." John looked at her suspiciously. He could sense that she was trying to avoid responsibility. But what could he do? He couldn't leave his car like this. The boy, still looking down, tried to help by picking up some pieces of the broken mirror. John wanted to yell at him, but he stopped himself. The boy was just a child, after all. But Karen, she was different. She was trying to protect her son, no matter what. And that realization sent a chill down John's spine. "Accident or not, someone has to pay for this," John said firmly. I worked too hard for this car to let it go like this." Karen didn't answer immediately. She looked at her son, then back at John. There was silence for a few tense moments, only broken by the faint sound of distant traffic and neighbors whispering. John knew this was just the beginning. He didn't realize it yet, but this accident would spiral out of control. Karen's family had secrets, and he was about to discover that things were much bigger than a broken Lamborghini. The thought of fighting with her and her son made his stomach turn, but he also knew he couldn't back down. As he took one last look at his damaged car, John whispered to himself, "This isn't over." Not by a long shot. Little did he know, Karen was already planning her next move. And soon, authorities would get involved, and the situation would turn into something even more shocking than a broken car. The Lamborghini sat there, scratched and damaged, a symbol of everything that was about to change in John's life. And the story was just beginning. The next morning, John woke up to a feeling he couldn't shake. It wasn't just anger anymore, it was the cold weight of worry pressing on his chest. He knew Karen's family would not take this lightly. And somehow, he had a feeling things were about to get much worse. He stepped outside, hoping the Lamborghini would at least be safe in his driveway overnight. But his heart sank. A small crowd had gathered, neighbors whispering, pointing, and sneaking glances at the car. Someone had already posted a blurry photo of the damage online. John's phone buzzed constantly. People were tagging him, sending messages, asking what had happened. The story was spreading faster than he could imagine. And then, he saw Karen. She was standing across the street, arms crossed, staring at him. But this time, it wasn't just worry on her face. There was a cold, calculating look. It was as if she had a plan that didn't involve fixing his car. John felt a chill run down his spine. "Morning, John," Karen called, her voice too calm. "We need to talk." John walked toward her cautiously, trying to keep his anger under control. "Talk? About what? About your son destroying my car?" His voice was sharp, but he tried to stay calm. Karen tilted her head, smiling slightly. "Accidents happen, John. You know that. Maybe you should think about your reaction before things get worse." John blinked. Was she threatening him? Or was this just another way to avoid responsibility? He didn't know. He had never seen her like this before. Her usual loud complaints and arguments were gone. Now, it was quiet, dangerous quiet. Before he could respond, her son appeared behind her, looking nervous but oddly defiant. He muttered, "It wasn't that bad," but didn't finish the sentence. John's fists clenched. "Not that bad," he shouted. "Look at this." He pointed to the car. The scratches and dents were still glaring under the morning sun. Karen raised a hand, cutting him off. "Enough. This isn't how we handle things. You need to calm down before you say something you'll regret." John took a deep breath. He realized he couldn't reason with her, not yet. She was trying to manipulate him, trying to make him doubt himself. And in that moment, he knew he needed proof, and not just photos. He needed witnesses, evidence, anything to make sure Karen couldn't twist the story. As he walked back to the car, he noticed something strange. A small security camera had been installed across the street, pointing directly at the Lamborghini. Someone was watching. Someone was recording. And John couldn't help but wonder, was it Karen? Or was it someone else? The tension in the air was thick. Neighbors were peeking from behind curtains, whispering to each other. John felt like every step he took was being watched, judged. And somewhere deep down, he realized this wasn't just about a car anymore. Karen's family had influence, and John might have just stepped into a situation far bigger than he imagined. Suddenly, Karen's tone changed. "Maybe we should involve the authorities," she said casually, almost like a suggestion, not a warning. But John could sense the trap in her words. He had to be careful. One wrong move, and things could spiral out of control. John's mind raced. If he called the police first, would they believe him? Or would Karen manipulate the story, make it look like he was overreacting? The thought made his stomach turn. He needed a plan, and fast. Then, Karen's son did something unexpected. He stepped closer to John, eyes wide, and whispered, "Mom, maybe he's right. I messed up." It was a small crack in Karen's armor, but it gave John a tiny sliver of hope. Maybe he could reason with the boy, maybe he could get someone on his side. John looked at the Lamborghini one last time that morning. The scratches were like scars, reminders that this was just the beginning. He knew he had to stay calm, stay smart, and gather every bit of evidence. Because Karen was not going to make it easy. And if he underestimated her, things could get dangerous fast. As he walked inside to grab more cameras and start recording everything, he felt the tension building. This wasn't just about a car. This was about truth, responsibility, and a battle that was only getting started. And somewhere across the street, Karen smiled faintly, knowing she had already started her own game. The sun was barely rising, but John's mind was wide awake. Sleep had abandoned him the night before, replaced by worry, anger, and an uneasy sense of dread. As he sipped his coffee, he stared out the window at his Lamborghini. The scratches gleamed under the morning light like open wounds. He thought back to Karen's words yesterday, calm, quiet, almost too calculated. Something about her tone didn't sit right with him. He grabbed his phone and started scrolling through the comments on the photo that had gone viral overnight. His Lamborghini, once a symbol of pride, was now a public spectacle. Some people were sympathetic, but others were already blaming him for overreacting. And that's when he noticed a message from an unknown number. Be careful. Not everyone sees things the way you do. John froze. Who was this? Was it Karen, or someone connected to her? He couldn't tell, but the message made his stomach twist. This was no longer just about a car, it felt like a warning. Before he could think more, there was a knock at the door. He opened it to find Karen standing there, holding a folder and smiling faintly. "Morning, John," she said. "I thought we could try to solve this calmly." John's jaw tightened. Solve this calmly? You mean, avoid responsibility? He shot back. Karen tilted her head, still smiling. I don't see it that way. Accidents happen. But maybe we can find a solution without involving anyone else, for now. John knew she was playing a game. He could see it in her eyes, the quiet manipulation, the way she tried to twist words to make him doubt himself. He had heard stories about her influence, but he had never realized just how far she could go. The tension didn't stop there. Karen's son appeared behind her, glancing at John nervously. I really didn't mean to, he said softly. It just happened so fast. John clenched his fists. The boy sounded sincere, but he also knew this wasn't just about the child. Karen was controlling the situation, keeping herself safe while pushing the responsibility onto others. And John realized, if he didn't act fast, he could lose control of the entire situation. Determined, he decided to contact the insurance company and report the damage. But when he started, a sinking feeling hit him. Karen had already called them. The agent's tone was polite but cautious, hinting that Karen had presented her version first. John felt frustration and panic rising in his chest. He had proof, photos, videos, witnesses, but would it be enough to fight back against someone like Karen? As he hung up the phone, there was a sudden knock on the window. He jumped, looking outside. It was one of the neighbors from yesterday, waving a hand nervously. They whispered, Karen's been talking to people. Be careful. She's not the type to lose. John felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't just a car anymore. Karen was controlling the narrative, and he could feel the walls closing in. Every move he made would now be watched, questioned, and possibly twisted. Determined not to back down, John started gathering all the evidence he could. He walked around the car, checking every scratch, every dent, every broken piece. He recorded videos, took timestamps, and even spoke to witnesses who had seen the accident. But deep down, he knew Karen was already plotting her next move. Hours later, he heard a car pull up outside. Through the window, he saw Karen and her son leaving in a sleek black SUV. He didn't know where they were going, but he had a sinking feeling that this was part of her plan, a plan to manipulate the situation before it spiraled out of her control. John took a deep breath. The stakes were higher than ever. This wasn't just about fixing a car. This was about standing up to someone who would do anything to protect themselves and their family. And he realized that the battle had only just begun. As he looked at the Lamborghini one more time, he whispered to himself, "I won't let her win, not now, not ever." Little did John know, Karen's next move would pull in people he never expected, and soon, authorities would be involved. The situation was escalating faster than he could imagine, and the tension was about to reach a breaking point. John didn't expect to hear sirens that afternoon. The shrill sound of police cars echoed through the quiet neighborhood, stopping everyone in their tracks. He looked out the window, heart racing. He hadn't called the police. So why were they here? Before he could process it, a uniformed officer stepped out of a patrol car, clipboard in hand, and started walking toward his driveway. John ran outside, trying to stay calm but failing. "Officer! Wait! Something happened, my car, it was destroyed." The officer looked at him briefly and nodded, but there was a strange formality in his tone. "Sir, we received a complaint regarding this vehicle. We need your side of the story." John froze. Complaint? He hadn't filed any complaint. That meant Karen had called them first. His stomach twisted. He realized this wasn't just about a car anymore, it was about control, power, and manipulation. Karen appeared from across the street, perfectly calm, smiling faintly as if she had rehearsed this moment. "Officer, thank you for coming," she said sweetly. "It's all right, I just want to make sure everything is handled properly." John wanted to scream. This was wrong. She was spinning the story, making him look like the aggressor. But he swallowed his anger and tried to explain. "No, you don't understand. She's lying. Her son destroyed my Lamborghini." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Sir, we'll need evidence." "Do you have proof?" John immediately pulled out his phone, showing photos and videos from the previous day. He narrated everything: the accident, Karen's son running into the car, her initial refusal to take responsibility. But even as he spoke, he could see the officer exchanging a glance with Karen. Something in their look made him uneasy. Karen spoke next, her tone calm but persuasive. "Officer, I just want to be honest. My son did hit the car, but it was an accident. He didn't mean to, and I've been trying to resolve it peacefully. He's just a kid, I think the other party is overreacting." John felt his blood boil. Overreacting? He had every right to be furious. But Karen was using every word carefully, framing herself as reasonable and him as angry. He realized she had learned how to manipulate adults and authority figures from a young age. The officer made notes and asked both sides to remain calm. John could see Karen's subtle smirk, she knew exactly how to play the system. His mind raced. He had to be smart, or he would lose everything. Then, as if to add more tension, a neighbor stepped forward. "I saw the whole thing yesterday," they said nervously. The kid ran into the Lamborghini. It wasn't the owner's fault. John's hope flared. This was a witness, proof beyond the photos and videos. But Karen didn't panic. Instead, she stepped closer to her son, shielding him, and spoke softly, convincing the neighbor to doubt their memory. "Are you sure? Maybe you didn't see clearly," she whispered. The neighbor hesitated. John felt frustration rising. Karen was manipulating even innocent people. The officer, sensing the tension, said, "We will investigate this matter. No decisions will be made today. Both parties must stay available for questioning." John nodded, trying to hide his anger. He knew the next few days would be critical. Karen had started a battle he didn't fully understand yet. But one thing was certain, she wouldn't let this go easily, and he couldn't either. As the police left, Karen waved politely. "See you soon, John. Let's hope we can solve this calmly." John watched her SUV disappear around the corner, a sinking feeling in his chest. Karen had played the first move perfectly, and he had to think carefully about his next. One wrong step, and he could be trapped in a game he wasn't ready for. He walked back to his Lamborghini, running his hand over the scratches again. This wasn't just a car anymore. It was a battlefield. And now, with the authorities involved, the stakes had just gone higher. Little did John know, the next move Karen made would take the conflict to a completely unexpected level, forcing him to make decisions he never imagined he would have to face. John sat alone in his living room late at night, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet, but his mind was loud, buzzing with fear, anger, and a strange curiosity. He couldn't stop thinking about Karen and her son. Something about the way Karen had manipulated the authorities and the witnesses didn't feel right. He had to know the full story, no matter what it took. He grabbed his laptop and began searching for anything related to Karen and her family. At first, he found the usual social media profiles, pictures of smiling children, family vacations, perfectly staged posts. But then, as he dug deeper, he noticed a pattern. There were posts from months ago showing reckless behavior, accidents, and complaints from neighbors. Nothing serious enough for the authorities to care about, but enough to show a history of manipulation and carelessness. John's heart started racing. Karen wasn't just lucky, she had been playing this game for years. He realized that every move she made yesterday, calling the police first, manipulating the neighbor, staying calm, was part of a bigger plan. She knew exactly how to control the narrative. Determined, John decided to go further. He checked public records, trying to find any past incidents involving her family. At first, the search came up empty, but then he found something shocking. There were several complaints about Karen's son causing damage, disputes with neighbors, and even minor traffic violations that were mysteriously dismissed. Someone in authority had always protected her family. A chill ran down John's spine. He had underestimated her. This wasn't just about a car. This was about a family who knew how to manipulate situations and avoid consequences. And he had stumbled directly into their web. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. It was an unknown number, sending him a photo of his Lamborghini, the same scratches he had taken pictures of, but this time, someone had written on the photo, "Stop digging. It's not worth it." John's hands shook. This was a warning. Karen or someone close to her was watching him. But fear only made him more determined. He couldn't back down now. If he let them scare him, they would win. The next day, John went back to the scene of the accident. He wanted to talk to anyone who might have witnessed the event, anyone who hadn't been influenced by Karen. He knocked on doors, asked questions, and slowly, a few neighbors began to speak, carefully, in whispers. They confirmed what he already knew: Karen's son had run into the car, and she had tried to manipulate everyone afterward. John also noticed something strange while talking to a neighbor: a small security camera hidden on a tree across the street. He hadn't seen it before. It was angled directly at the Lamborghini. Someone had been recording everything, likely Karen's family. This confirmed his worst fear: she was watching his every move. As he walked back to his car, John realized that uncovering the truth was dangerous. Karen had influence, resources, and the ability to manipulate people. But he also realized that hiding the truth wasn't an option. Someone had to expose what really happened, for justice, for accountability, and for himself. That night, John stayed up again, creating a detailed timeline of events, organizing photos, videos, and witness statements. Every detail mattered. Every timestamp mattered. He knew that if he was going to win this, he needed to be smarter than Karen. And deep down, he felt a spark of hope. Karen had underestimated him. She thought he was just an angry man over a car. She didn't know he was ready to fight back, piece by piece, uncovering her family's secrets. Little did he know, the next confrontation with Karen would be closer than he imagined, and the truth he was uncovering would force her to make a dangerous move that could change everything. The rain fell hard that evening, drumming against John's windows like a warning. The street was almost empty, the sky dark and gray. He had been waiting for this moment, the moment when he would finally confront Karen and her son with the truth. Every photo, every video, every witness statement was ready. He felt nervous, but more than that, he felt determined. He saw Karen's SUV pull up slowly across the street, her silhouette barely visible through the rain. She stepped out, her umbrella shielding her face, but John could still sense her confidence. She had done this many times before, controlling situations, twisting stories, and avoiding consequences. But tonight would be different. John walked toward her, holding a folder tightly against his chest. "Karen," he said, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. "We need to talk. Now." Karen tilted her head, a faint smirk appearing despite the rain. "Of course, John. I've been waiting to hear your side," she said calmly. Her son appeared behind her, shivering under the rain, avoiding John's gaze. John opened the folder and laid out the evidence: photos of the Lamborghini, videos from witnesses, screenshots of social media posts, and even the security camera footage. "This proves everything," he said, pointing to the photos. "Your son ran into my car, and you've been manipulating everyone since." Karen's smirk faltered for just a second. She took a deep breath, trying to regain control. "John, accidents happen. You're overreacting. My son didn't mean it." John shook his head. "It's not about meaning it or not. It's about responsibility. You've lied to neighbors, twisted the story, and even tried to involve the authorities against me. This stops now." Karen's son finally spoke, his voice shaking. "Mom, he's right. I didn't mean to, but we made it worse by lying." Karen's eyes widened slightly, the first real crack in her armor. She looked at her son, then back at John. For a moment, silence filled the street, broken only by the sound of the rain. "You think this changes anything?" Karen whispered, almost to herself. But John didn't back down. "I'm not leaving until this is resolved," John said firmly. "You need to take responsibility for what you and your family did." For the first time, Karen hesitated. She glanced around, noticing a few neighbors watching from windows. The truth, finally, was in front of her. John's preparation, patience, and determination had cornered her. Then, in a sudden move, Karen's son stepped forward. "Mom, we have to fix this." "It's the right thing to do," he said. Karen's lips pressed tightly together. John could see her mind racing, trying to figure out her next move. But the dam had broken. The confrontation had forced her to face reality, and for the first time, she couldn't twist the story to her advantage. John felt a mixture of relief and cautious triumph. He knew this wasn't over completely, but tonight, he had shifted the balance. The truth was out, and Karen's control was weakening. As the rain continued to fall, John looked at his Lamborghini. The scratches were still there, but now, they symbolized more than damage. They represented a battle fought, evidence uncovered, and the courage to stand up to someone who thought they were untouchable. Little did John know, the aftermath of this confrontation would bring even more surprises, forcing authorities to take action, and pushing Karen's family into a position they were not prepared for. The morning sunlight filtered through John's blinds, but it did little to lift the tension in the air. Last night's confrontation had ended with Karen and her son retreating, but John knew the battle was far from over. Something told him today would bring the answers he had been waiting for one way or another. He stepped outside and noticed a small crowd gathering across the street. Cameras, neighbors, and even local reporters were appearing, drawn by whispers of the Lamborghini incident. Somehow, the story had grown bigger than anyone could have imagined. John's heart raced. He had wanted justice, but he hadn't expected it to go this far. Suddenly, a black SUV pulled up, and this time it wasn't just Karen, it was the authorities. Officers stepped out, looking serious, official, and unmistakably in charge. John realized that the evidence he had meticulously gathered, photos, videos, witness statements, had finally reached the right people. Karen appeared behind them, her confident smile gone, replaced by something tight and controlled. John could see her scanning the crowd nervously. For the first time, she was on the defensive. The lead officer approached John and said, "Sir, we've reviewed your evidence. It's clear that there was intentional negligence and attempts to manipulate witnesses. We will be taking appropriate action." John felt a wave of relief. Finally, the truth was recognized. Karen's attempts to twist the story, to protect her family, had failed. Justice, at last, was on his side. Karen's son looked down at his feet, guilt written across his face. For once, John didn't feel anger toward him, just relief that the truth was coming out. But Karen, standing beside him, looked like a storm contained only by force. John realized this wasn't just a legal battle, it was a moral victory. The authorities spoke to Karen privately, warning her of serious consequences if she continued to obstruct the investigation. John watched as she nodded stiffly, her power slipping away. It was a rare sight. Karen, someone so used to controlling every situation, finally cornered. As the crowd began to disperse, neighbors came up to John, offering congratulations, apologies, and admiration for his persistence. Some even admitted they had been afraid of Karen's influence and hadn't spoken up earlier. John realized that by standing firm, he hadn't just fought for his car, he had given others courage too. He walked back to the Lamborghini, now more than just a car. The scratches and dents were still visible, but they were no longer symbols of anger or defeat. They represented endurance, patience, and the willingness to fight for what was right. John whispered to himself, "It's over, for now." But as he looked at Karen's SUV disappearing down the street, he felt a twinge of unease. Karen had lost this round, but she was resourceful and cunning. He knew she might return, in some form, when least expected. The battle had ended, but the story wasn't completely finished. With a deep breath, John turned to the Lamborghini, ran his hand over the hood, and smiled. He had faced manipulation, deceit, and threats, but he had uncovered the truth. Justice had been served. And as he started the engine, the roar of the car felt like more than power, it was freedom, vindication, and the promise that he would never let anyone take advantage of him again.